Alfaholics is a family business that's developed over really 30 or 40 years, starting with what my dad did as a car restorer, and then moving into a parts business, going racing, developing a race car, and then ending up building GTAs. So we've gone full circle and we're back building cars again, which is what my dad was doing 30 years ago.
Well, Alfaholics started in the late 90s, but actually my father's association with Alfa and interest in Alfa goes back much further than that.
My dad is a lifelong motorsport enthusiast, so really for him growing up in the 60s it was all about Colin Chapman and Jim Clark. So everything was about Lotus, and he had a Lotus 7, etc, etc. And then he got into wanting to run motorsport teams, so British Formula 3 with a Lotus Formula 3 car, because that's what he wanted to have. And then in the 70s he got into doing touring cars, and they were racing minis. And then Alfa brought out the Alfetta GTV in 1977, and he looked at that and thought that would make a good car for the British Production Saloon Car Championship. So he bought the first one in the country, and that was the first Alfa that he bought. And really that was a bit of a turning point for him. And then after that, everything he bought was Alfas. They nearly won the championship 2 years in a row. They were second 2 years in a row with the car. And then after that, that coincided with my brother being born. So my dad then starting to have a young family, took a back seat from racing, but stayed with Alfas and was buying things like 2000 GTVs as really 3, 4, 5-year-old cars. And he was just buying and selling cars, you know, they were used cars. And then turn into the 80s, they're getting old enough to need restoring, they needed painting, they needed rust repairs, they needed mechanically rebuilding. So then he was rebuilding the cars and really sort of fell into a position of being a restorer through you know, the condition of the cars.
Growing up, I mean, Max and I really knew nothing else. I mean, both our parents drove Alfas. Of course, it was wonderful having these old cars around, and actually it wasn't just Alfas as well, there was the odd Maserati in there as well. So, you know, as a child, it was just amazing, and going to school in these things and being picked up in these cars, it was just fantastic. And so inevitably, I got involved in, you know, simple tasks and helping my father in the workshop, and it was just, as a child, it was fantastic. My father was keen to get me out in the cars, and he was keen that I sampled different cars and different varieties. And so, yeah, I remember him, you know, taking me out in the GTA, and that was just fantastic. It was just something completely different, but it was great to finally be able to drive the car that I'd sort of looked at all those years, and he'd taken me out in it, and finally I could have a go, and that was just fantastic. Well, the recession came along in the early 90s, and that really killed the classic car market stone dead, and it suddenly became impossible, or almost impossible, to buy the cars, restore them and sell them and make any money. So he identified that really selling parts was going to be the way forward, and that was when Alfaholics was formed in the late 1990s. So Alfaholics began just as a reseller. So, you know, he would source the parts in Europe and then bring them to the UK and then sell them. And very quickly he began selling parts all over the world, and developing Alfaholics as a means of doing that. And so there was no support from Alfa Romeo or anything like that. He purely did it himself. And then after that, he began to start making stuff locally, and using local machine shops to develop performance parts for the cars and improve them.
I mean, immediately Dad wanted to modify things and develop some parts. So he was the first person to cast GTA replica wheels in aluminium, so taking the old 60s Campagnolo magnesium wheel designs, getting them cast in aluminium. Sports exhaust systems, stainless sports exhaust systems, fast road handling kits, springs, dampers, roll bars. You know, he was doing that right in the early days of Alfaholics as a parts business. But that all coincided with my brother and I getting to an age where we wanted to go racing.
I'd started racing, well, I began racing karts and then Formula Ford, and then with the inception of Alfaholics, we began We built a car and began developing parts, so suspension parts, brake parts, engine parts, and then I began racing that car.
So we developed a car to go racing, which we now call GTAR number 1. It was, you know, at the time there was no plan to be building GTARs the way that we are, but at the time that was a car, it was a steel body Sprint GT. We made it look like a GTA grills, GTA door buttons, the look of a GTA. Put a 2-litre twin spark from an Alfa 75, so this was really sort of late 90s, early 2000s. Very early days of putting Alfa 75 twin sparks into 105 series coupes. That coincided with Julius Thurgood doing his Top Hat GTA Challenge, which my brother turned up at and put the car on pole and won most of the races of the season. And we were developing the car and developing more parts to make the car faster. And that coincided with when I left university and joined the business, and I looked at our race car as quite a highly developed car that we'd done for ourselves, and I turned around to my dad and said, well, can I take the parts off the car? Can we go and get them manufactured and offer them to our customers? Because I think there's a demand to offer performance parts for these cars. And my dad was very willing, and you know, I thank him for that. You know, he just said, yeah, get on with it. If you want to do that, then go and do that. So we were taking the parts off the car that we had engineered and then taking them to engineering firms and getting them to manufacture them in bulk, put them on the website, and then parts were selling very, very quickly. And I turned around to my dad and said, I've sold out of those, I need to make another production. And he said, well, you best get on and develop some more parts then. And that really kick-started Alfaholics, the parts, you know, the performance parts specialists. In the meantime, Dad had built a car for a customer, which we kind of call number 2, so my car's number 3. And I built my car to have all the looks of a GTA with the Alfa 75 derived twin spark engine in it, but road based, it to look like a racing car, but to be comfortable for the road and usable for the road. You know, at the time you're sort of 19, 20, 21, your mates have all gone out and got the latest Subaru, or they've got an old 911 or whatever they've got. You know, really it was about having a classic car that I could go and use with my friends and bits and pieces and go off for the weekend with, or go for a week away. And you know, it was putting that car on our website, showing the pictures. So really all I wanted to do was show people what I was up to with the car, and you know, let people see, get a bit of inspiration for what I was building.
And that started to get a bit of exposure, and customers started to see what we were doing with our own cars and the parts development, and of course we were adding continually to our inventory of performance parts. And then someone came along and said, right, I really want you to build me a car. And it was something we hadn't considered before. But he was adamant that he wanted us to do that and to put all the parts together into one car. And we said, okay, well let's do that. And that was how it all started. And that was probably 12 or 13 years ago. The word didn't really get out in those early days. You know, for the first few cars, we were just cracking on and building the cars for people, and we were continually upgrading them and making improvements. But it was only more recently when actually the press got hold of one of the cars, which was our main demonstrator, and really got hold of it and told everyone about it. You know, we'd spent many years doing our own thing, and we're doing all our own development. You know, we do trips to the Nürburgring to set up dampers and valve dampers and do all this sort of work, and we do, you know, countless track days to get miles on the cars. We do road miles. So, you know, there's a huge amount of work that we were doing across all those years to improve the cars in a way that we thought they were enhanced, but also retaining the character of the car, and that's always very important to us. So it was very nice then when some of the press and the journalists got hold of the cars, and they gave the cars a great review, and it was almost an endorsement of what we'd been working on all those years. The
demand's huge. We get serious inquiries very nearly weekly on them. We've got, you know, quite early on, as soon as the lead time got beyond about, I could handle 2 or 3 year lead times in my head in terms of the production stages of each car, what I needed to have ready, how many cars I was planning the production of. But once it got above that, you know, we need to have proper strategies in place and systems to chart everything. I've got spreadsheets that chart my life between now and 2029, which is when the latest orders are due for completion. You know, with stages for every section of the build, what we've completed, what we haven't completed, what we need to have done, what parts we need to have on the shelf ready for that build. So we're basically also pre-picking complete car builds now. So before a body shell's painted, ready to be assembled, we will have every single part for that build sat in its build bay. And that's now very important. It's a big cash flow undertaking for all the builds, but for the efficiency of building the cars and making sure that the stuff's on the shelf for the guys to put them together, that's actually really, really important. So yeah, managing the GTAR build queue is my day-to-day job, and is an undertaking.
It's not a different car. It's I mean, visually very similar. You know, we've not changed the shape of the cars, and I think the cars are just absolutely perfect as they are in terms of the design. It's a stunning design, but we have improved things under the skin. And yes, so the cars that we're producing now are obviously faster. The suspension's been improved, but what we have done is we've maintained the character of the cars. So there are certain aspects of the suspension, for example, that we have worked with Alfa's design and simply improved it rather than going away to something completely different. You know, we haven't gone and tried to develop independent rear suspension, because that then means that the car doesn't drive like a 105 series Alfa, and it's very important that the cars retain that feel, so that, you know, somebody who perhaps got out of a completely standard car could get in the latest GTAR and it would still feel like a 105 series Alfa to drive. It would still have that sort of that light touch and that sort of oversteer led balance which the rear suspension gives the cars, and we don't want to remove that character. We just want to enhance the character and enhance the performance of the car. You know, and there's an awful lot else that goes on in Alfaholics as well as building GTARs. We do period correct restorations, we do race preparation, and of course the core business is still the mail order parts. So the focus is in all areas, but the GTAR program is just part of the many things we do. So we have our main offices and our warehouse, where we have 3 stories of parts all racked out. And we have a dispatch area where we ship sort of 70 to 80 parcels a day. And then in addition to that, we have our main workshop, and then we also have our assembly area principally for GTARs and for race preparation, our sort of clean build room.
Yeah, so GTAR in a box is a common phrase in the office now, and it's becoming an increasingly common occurrence. You know, it used to be 1 or 2 a year. It's now, you know, a lot more than that. And, you know, I think part of it, some people don't want to come to us for a GTAR. They say, no, I've got my own mechanic, I've got my own guy, I want to be involved in building my own project, but I want to use your parts. I want to take inspiration from your cars. And I think the other thing that's nice is that in terms of mail order business, and, you know, I've got it with other things that aren't Alfas, when you go to buy parts, is if you can't see it all on a car in that company, do you really know what the outcome of your car is going to be? And, you know, it's no small financial undertaking, it's no small undertaking in terms of time to build these cars. So I think for people to be able to see what the end result is through what parts are on the website, it gives them a comforting feeling that they know where they're going to be. You know, and so some people say, I want to do it myself, I want it to be my project, but I want to buy all the parts from you and I want your advice and your help, and that's something else that we're very happy to give. You know, I project manage all the builds, but I've still got my desk in the mail order office, and when it comes to technical things on how you do this or that, putting a GTAR suspension or brake kit on a car, yeah, I'm on the end of the phone telling people how to do it. Right. You know, it's no problem to give that feedback and that help. Other people have asked about a GTAR, have not wanted to wait however many years for a car. So they have said, right, I will find a car and I'll do it at home with your help. So we do that for people. It's very important for me, the small production volume, the niche manufacturing, the way that we build the cars, to me is an incredibly important part of it. You know, I handle every single GTAR client in terms of speccing their car. I project manage every single body restoration. work out exactly how we want that body shell to be, do all the choosing of the exterior colours with the customers, do all the colour sampling. When it comes to the assembly of the builds, I project manage every single assembly. All the decisions that go into how that car is built, you know, I'll personally manage that. When it's built, I'll then do all the road testing myself, do all the Motec mapping with my Motec engineer together. I'm the person that will drive it and sign it off and say that car is now ready to be handed over to the customer. And I really enjoy doing it. It's part of the business I love doing, and I also think it's quite important. So that is a scale that I can handle with what we're doing in terms of the volume.
Well, we've been fortunate enough to have the background with my father. You know, we grew up and knew nothing else, and so, you know, it enabled us to really, we fell in love with the cars, and we've been able to focus on those cars, and we've done that to the exclusion of everything else. And I think it's by we've managed to grow a great team around us here, and you know, we've worked really hard. I think the combination of the racing as well. The fact we've worked so hard with the development on the GTAR program, and really it's led us to where we are today.
There's some exciting future projects, stuff that I can't discuss, but yeah, there's some things coming through that yeah, just pretty special stuff. So I think it's going to be super exciting in the next few years. And you know, there's every time you think you've kind of done all the development, there's clearly other places you can take it, and you know, the future's bright. It's incredible what we've achieved. I'm so proud. I wish my mother was still alive to see what the business had become. You know, sadly she's no longer with us, and I think she would to get to give her a tour around this facility for just 1 hour to show her what we've developed would be the most special thing that I could ever do. You know, it's amazing what we've done, and you know, you go back 10 years, you couldn't believe the way that the business has changed. So no, we're, you know, as a family, as you know, all the guys who work here as well, they're, you know, everyone's very proud of the business and you know, what we are as a little team.